here I'll go with the R12 terms here, R12 EBS. So here, like when you are working on R12, so we'll have a menus concept, right? Menus, within the menu we'll have a submenu. Within the submenu we'll have functions. Good. So we'll have a menu. Within the menu we'll have a submenu, and within the submenus we'll have a functions, right? So if you want to give access to anyone, it may be for specific menu or submenu or functions, what we do? Anyone can just answer to this question. It's a very just a basic thing. Okay, anyone? I want to hear from someone. That's all. So if I want to give access to menu or submenu, don't think I'll be asking this kind of basic questions, but just since this is a concept, I want to focus on this more. Okay, see, if I want to give access to menu or submenu or functions, how we can do in EBS? Any answer?
We will create the responsibilities.
Yes. Okay, I'll create. Please, you can stay on the line. We'll create the responsibility. Okay, I create a responsibility. Can I give access to any user?
After creating the responsibility has to assign to the user.
Okay, assign the responsibility to user. User can use it?
Proper profile options has to be set in the responsibility level.
Exactly, done. That's all. That is the point. So we have to create responsibility. Okay, thank you. Okay, responsibility, how to create. After creating responsibility, also directly you cannot use particular application related menu or submenu or function. We have to assign profile option. Through profile option, primarily when you talk about finance, we'll assign primary ledger or operating unit. For depending on application, definitely primary ledger and operating unit. If you talk about OU specific, you have to assign primary ledger and OU. If you talk about only GL, you can assign only primary ledger. That means we are creating responsibility, we are assigning the primary ledger and OU or primary ledger to responsibility, then only you can use it. Why we are creating responsibility here? The concept is why we are creating responsibility. The reason why we are creating responsibility is without responsibility concept, you cannot have access to this. With the responsibility concept, logically you can just take these points into responsibility. You can connect these to responsibility so that user can connect to responsibility through that responsibility, whatever the data he has access, data in the sense primary ledger and operating unit, through that they'll be able to work on these functions. Okay. So that is the reason we are creating. To connect to menu or submenu or functions only we are using responsibility, because without responsibility concept, you cannot assign primary ledger or operating unit to any one of these components. So to establish the connectivity between the menu, submenu or functions and primary ledger and operating unit, we should use responsibility. Now in the Fusion, to connect the similar concepts with this kind of primary ledger or operating unit, responsibility is not required in the Fusion. They made it very simple. Let's talk about it. Okay, done. So here I'll talk about Fusion. So in EBS case, we have menus, submenus, functions, responsibilities, primary ledger. The Fusion equal to menu in Fusion we have job roles. Okay, job roles. What we can have within the menu? Submenus, functions. Again, menu will be specific to particular application, right? In the same way, in Fusion, equal to menu will have a job roles, and in EBS we have submenu. Equal to submenus in Fusion we have duty roles, and here we have a functions. Here also we'll have a functions, or you can call as here privileges. That is not a big point to compare and discuss. Here we'll have a functions, and within the submenu we'll have a functions. In Fusion also we'll have a functions and all. Functions or privileges you can call. Here we have a responsibility. Here we don't have no responsibility. And here what we are doing? We are assigning the primary ledger or operating unit to business units. Okay, here I'll take in this way for our better understanding. We'll have a responsibility. Finally, we have to assign responsibility, primary ledger and our operating units to responsibility. This is how it works in the R12, right? So that means there is a point to understand. To responsibility, we have to assign primary ledger wherever it's required, primary ledger and operating, depending on which application responsibility. So we don't have responsibility concept in Fusion, but equal to this. This concept is not there, means where primary ledger and operating will get connected with this menu or submenus related to particular application, how it works. Equal to this means combination of responsibility and primary ledger are operating it. Here, otherwise instead of taking responsibility, I'll take the combination of menu or submenus and the primary ledger operating. Here we have concept called as data role. I request you all to mute. Somebody is unmuted. I can hear a lot of noise. Venkat, please. Thanks. Okay, here we have concept called as data role. Okay, data role is equal to, in the data role what happens is it's equal to job role plus primary ledger or BU. In Fusion we operating it we call as BU, right? So this is the point. Okay, this is equal to responsibility where primary ledger and operating it is assigned. Now in EBS what we'll do, this responsibility will be assigned to user. In the same way in Fusion, this data roles will assign to user. I'll take one simple example. Job role is, one of the job role is payables manager. If I take job role menu in EBS for payables is AP Navigate GUI. Equal to AP Navigate GUI, in Fusion we have a payables manager. Now if I have a primary ledger, simply I'll be taking it, I'll take the one job role. Here as I mentioned here, job role plus primary ledger. I'll take the job role called as payables manager. I'll be connecting primary ledger, only in case of payables manager, definitely primary ledger and BU. I'll be connecting this combination. Payables manager is one of the job role in Fusion, and I'll be just mapping, assigning primary ledger and business unit. This combination we call as data role. That means this payables manager can have access to the specific BU data. When you access to that payables manager role, you'll be able to work for specific BU. That means data. This is the role is payables manager. This payables manager role can have access to which data? Okay, which it can primary ledger also can call it as specific data. So BU. Since we are talking about payables, I'm focusing on BU only. That's the meaning of data role. Okay. So now what we have to do, this combination we have to assign to user. In EBS, we'll be assigning the primary operating units or primary ledger to particular responsibility. In Fusion, you don't do that. So data roles are created by system automatically based on the configuration which you do. That will be discussing more detail level. Now the simple point is, in the Fusion we have a job roles, duty roles, and data roles. And just I'll finalize this discussion. So we have basically 4 types of roles in Fusion. Everything works based on roles only in Fusion applications. 4 types of roles we have. Those 4 types of roles are the same. I'm going to list out: job roles, duty roles, data roles, abstract roles. Okay, they are the 4 types of roles we have. Job roles are equal to EBS menus, duty roles are equal to EBS submenus, data roles are equal to the combination of responsibility and primary ledger and operating unit when you compare with EBS. And abstract roles, it's a simple employee role we call as abstract role. We don't need to do anything with this. That's how the application logic purpose they created abstract roles. You don't need to go and work on abstract role. Primary will be working on job role, duty role, and data role. For these roles only based on application, in the different application, the same roles will be calling with the different names also. That will be discussing very detailed level in further classes. So this is a point to understand. This is equal to menu, duty role is equal to submenu, EBS comparison. Data role is equal to responsibility and primary ledger and operating it. Abstract. So, and out of these, job roles are Oracle delivered, means Oracle is providing as a seeded, predefined. And the duty roles also you can get from Oracle, which are predefined, which will be part of this submenu and available to, that will discuss. Data roles, here we have 2 options. Generally, the system will create, if required, as per our requirement, you can create the custom data roles also. Abstract roles are delivered by Oracle only. Okay. So these are the points to understand, and I have a few questions here. So let me go through it. I'm not able to hear anything from beginning onwards. Ramesh. Yes, he is able to see the screen. Now, even if I say you cannot hear that, let me type some text saying that please reconnect. All right, Ramesh, please reconnect. Hope you can see this test and you can take that action. Okay, and fine. Satya, HR user type is equal to HR employee abstract role. HR user type is profile option. I'm not comparing that. Here it's not profile option related. We'll discuss about it. Not equal. To give the answer for your question, HR user type is not equal to employee abstract role. No. So different. We'll discuss. System profile. Yeah. No. Okay. No. Okay. So these are the points here. Okay. So we can create our custom roles. However, we can create the custom menus in EBS in the same way. Custom roles we can create in Fusion environment. And when I talk about data roles are created by system. So you no need to go and assign your primary ledger or business unit to particular menu or particular job or duty role. Job role or duty role that can be created by system. If at all you have a specific requirement as per your business process requirement, accordingly you can create. Anyway, that section also we are going to cover in our classes. Now, any questions on this topic, you can post and we can discuss because it's a very important thing to start with our application learning. Any questions on this? At least there should be a few questions minimum. Any questions? Hope everyone can hear me. Okay. No questions?
Lakshman.
Yeah.
So typically you would create, sorry.
Any question, please? Yeah, please. I'm there.
Yeah. So typically in an organization we create multiple responsibilities in 12. Right?
Yes.
Similarly, what you are saying is you will create different types of data roles by creating different job roles and assigning the primary ledger and the
simple. Yeah, let's make it simple as per our requirement. However, we create different responsibility in EBS in the same way we'll create different data roles. Simple. To create different data roles, you may create on top of job role or duty role directly. For say payables, complete payables, you require access. On job role, you'll create the data role. Otherwise, on specific duty role, you'll create the data role. That's all. In EBS, you can create multiple different responsibilities. In Fusion, you have to create different data roles as per your requirement. That's all. Got it. Okay, great. Fine. See, questions are always welcome because I love to hear the questions. And if somebody wants to understand some clarification required, just you can post me as many questions as you want to post. But I know I believe that they will be asking good questions. So far, I can see very good questions. Okay, any questions, please, or else we'll jump into the next concept.
So, what are the mandatory? Like in 12, you have 3 profile options.
No, come on. Yeah, I got your point. So, no profile option required to set up enterprise structure. No profile option is required. So without setting up single profile options, we can complete entire configuration. We can do the transaction process also. Rarely we use different, depending on some feature or function or controlling purpose. Rarely we may use in EBS also. The same here also you can use, but generally we don't use profile options. Not required. That's how they just build this product and how it works. Okay, we'll see that. But to answer your question, no mandatory profile option to implement your finance. Done. Okay, let me just move on to this another concept. Fusion users. Okay, I have some question from someone. Got it, OMC. How do we customize duty roles and deploy them in Fusion? Yes, OMC, definitely that we have to wait for some time to see that. How means, yes, there is some process. That process definitely will be covering. I include in our course content. You just, of course, yeah, we'll see that. in classes. The custom roles and all I'll be covering as a part of payables. If we cover for payables, same is applicable for other applications also. As a part of payables, I'll be covering that. Done. Now we discussed about Fusion roles, and now we'll talk about Fusion users. Okay, but there are a few points to understand. That is the reason I taken this as a separate concept. So simple, but we have to understand by comparing with the EBS here. Okay, we know here in R12 what we'll do, we'll create the user. So in EBS, where we can create the users by using the system administrator responsibility. Fusion, where you can create the users. You can create the users from two places. One is IDM, Oracle Entity Manager. Other one is HCM, Human Capital Management. Okay, here what is the process? Here we'll create the user and will assign responsibility to user and will assign employee to user. See, these may be basic, very basic for a few guys who are attending. They may think, but please wait for some time. You'll be understanding why I'm explaining. There are some small changes which we should understand. Okay. So here in EBS we'll create the, the responsibility. We'll be using to create the user in R12. We'll just use the system administrator responsibility. In Fusion we have two options. One is IDM, means Oracle Identity Manager. Already we discussed this term in first demo session. The same IDM can be called as OEM, Oracle Identity Manager. And other application is HCM. You can create the users from IDM or HCM. But in R12, you can create a user from System Administrator. Here we'll create the user. Here also we'll create the user. Here we'll be assigning to the responsible user. Here what will be assigned. See here. Here also we'll create the user. Same, just I'm comparing. Here we'll create the user. Here also we'll create. It can be created from IDM or HCM. We'll talk about if you create from HCM, what is the advantage. If you don't create from HCM, what are the disadvantages. Those points also we'll be discussing. R12 from here we'll create. In Fusion from here we'll create. Here in R12 what we are doing, we'll assign the responsibility to user. But here we'll be assigning the roles to user. Okay. It can be any role that you have to wait for some time to understand very detailed level. Generally we'll assign the data roles. Sometimes we'll assign directly the job roles also. There is some reason. We'll understand by next session. Or I may cover in the current session also. Let's see that. Please wait for some time, you can understand. That is the reason I'm not specifying which roles. Whether job roles or duty roles or abstract roles or which roles, I'm not specifying. Simply I'm giving the term as roles will be assigning. But if you want to see detail level, simply you can take the data roles. Along with the data roles, we can assign another roles also that we'll discuss very detailed. But for now, for your better understanding, you may take as we'll assign data roles since we are comparing with R12. Okay, we'll assign the data roles to user. Here what we'll do, we'll assign the employee to user. Here it's not possible. Manually we cannot do it. Not applicable. Okay, how these things will work, we'll see. Okay. Here employee will assign to user. Here we don't have any option to assign the employee to user in Fusion environment. That can be handled through what user we are creating. Okay. So this is simple points, and now we'll see what are the type of users we have in Fusion environment. When you're working, you'll come across basically two type of users. Okay, you'll see two type of users in Fusion applications. Okay, generally, R12 you'll see just only user which can be created from system administrator. You may use for any purposes. There you cannot classify type of users. Based on behavior, I'm classifying the users are two types in the Fusion application, how things works from where those can be created. The first one is implementation user. Okay, implementation user. The second user type is employee user. Okay. We have two type of users, implementation user and employee user. When you talk about implementation user, we'll go one by one. When you talk about implementation users we'll create from IDM generally. When you start with implementation, say IDM or OEM. Okay. When you start with the implementation, you have to start your implementation with the implementation user only. That user can be created from IDM or call it as OEM. Okay, IDM stands for already we discussed. Identity manager. So say it's application or tool, middleware tool. Okay, this is a part of middleware as we discussed in the last session. Okay, anyway, I'll be sharing the people who are attending this session as a first session. Of course, this is second in sequence, but few guys are attending directly this session. For them, I'll be sharing the recorded video, and then you can go through it, and these will be more meaningful for you, I guess. So, an EBS system administrator in Fusion to create the implementation user, identity manager, and employee user can be created from HCM. Okay, implementation user you can create from IDM. Employee user you can create from HCM. HCM means human capital management. In Fusion we are calling as HCM. Of course, a generic term, but in Fusion EBS we are calling as HRMS. Of course, within that HCM we have multiple applications which provides HCM human HCM solutions, HRMS solutions. Okay, human capital management. Okay, just in the initial 2-3 sessions, you'll come to know that what is the new terminologies and all. Then later, again and again, I'm not going to explain HCM means human capital management, IDM means identity manager and all. That will be more familiar for us. Then we can run through the actual flow of course. So we can create. Okay. Now it can be. So let's talk about the implementation user. So in EBS, if you want to start with implementation, what you do? You'll have access to sysadmin. Okay, sysadmin user access you should have, right? Okay, so you should have in the fresh environment, you need to get access to sysadmin user, then you can have access to instance. In the same way, let me write, I written here, R12 here, so I'll take this side. So in R12, if you want to start with implementation, you need access to sysadmin user, with that you can start. But in Fusion, we have a user called as FA admin. Okay, Fusion R12, sysadmin user will start with implementation, but this is a Oracle delivered user. In the same way, in the Fusion environment, Oracle delivered or say seeded username is FA admin. FA stands for Fusion Applications Admin. Okay, this is the user you will be using. Okay, done. Once you log in with the sysadmin in R12, what you can do, you can see the set of responsibilities. Primarily, we look for sysadmin responsibility, right? Sysadmin, system administrator responsible. Okay, we log into the system as sysadmin user, we'll access to system administrator responsibility, then you can start creating all the responsibility whatever you require, and you can start with your multi-hour configuration, you can assign the profile options and everything we can do if you have access to system administrator responsibility. But in Fusion we don't have any concept called as system administrator responsibility. Equal to responsibilities, we have roles. Okay, now what we have to do is, if you want to access, if you want to do the implementation, if you want to do the configuration of the system, the user should have access to these roles. What roles? The roles are application implementation consultant, this role, and IT security manager. Okay, for any user, okay, for any user, like you have a FA admin. Okay, you have a FA admin. FA admin by default will have access to application implementation consultant. But let's take simple point. When you are creating implementation user, for implementation user, you have to give the access to these two roles. But in EBS case, if you are going to work as implementation consultant, you need access to system administrator. Equal to that, in Fusion applications, the implementation consultant, who is going to just where we are going to create a system as an implementation user, the implementation user require access to this application implementation consultant IT security manager. Anyway, Oracle will be delivering FA admin, but our understanding in our course, what we are going to do is, we are going to create our own user. To that user will be assigning these two roles. These two roles required to have a complete access to the system environment to work as implementation consultant. These two roles are enough. These two roles will allow you to do just setups. Okay, these two roles will allow you to do some setups and all. So this is a point we have to understand. If you are going to create new user in Fusion application environment, what we have to do, as a mandatory, these two roles we have to assign. Okay, this is the point. If any questions on this, please.